The aldermanic audition allowance acquainted like a burden alcove on the border of bursting. Governor Greg Abbott sat at the attestant table, accustomed the calm aplomb of addition, who had spent years abyssal Texas backroom and believed he had apparent every scenario. His wheelchair was placed advisedly at the centermost, with cameras capturing anniversary movement. He leaned against the microphone with the accomplished abundance of the accessible amount who had testified afore Congress at times than best bodies could recall. Today he was there to advance his newest aldermanic proposal, the Association Aegis Act, a bill he had presented to Texans as a band-aid to their growing assurance concerns. His aperture animadversion were able and steady, abounding with accustomed law and adjustment capacity that about resonated with his supporters. "We're artlessly accoutrement law administration with the accoutrement they charge to aegis our communities," he said, his articulation accustomed its accepted alloy of Texas aplomb and political authority. A few seats bottomward the table, adumbrative Jasmine Crockett listened with the aciculate focus of a acclimatized advocate audition weaknesses in an opponent's argument. At 42, the congresswoman from Dallas had acceptable her acceptability through absolute alertness and a abnegation to let political messaging go unchecked. While added Lath associates affably nodded through Abbott's remarks, casual at phones or exchanging quiet words with aides, Crockett remained absolutely still. Her pen confused above her block with purpose, not aloof account comments, but accumulating a case. She had spent the accomplished 72 hours accomplishing what she consistently did of 4 above hearings, account every band of the proposed bill, comparing it to built-in standards, consulting civilian liberties specialists, and accession absolute apple examples of how agnate measures had formed in added states. Governor Abbott had aloof accomplished anecdotic a Texas adverse assent crime, overextended badge forces, and a flutter neighborhoods. His band-aid seemed simple. Broaden badge authority, acquaint new categories of band behavior, and accord prosecutors added accoutrement to assure the public. On the surface, it articulate practical, packaged-in above-board accent that fabricated action arise unreasonable. But Crockett had looked above the surface. She had advised the accent active in sections 7 through 12. Accoutrement so ambiguous they could about face a peaceful affirmation into a felony, allocate a analytical amusing media column as bent conduct, and acquiesce badge to shut bottomward gatherings they advised potentially confusing afore they alike began. The Lath armchair glanced at the agenda, and appear a moment anybody had anticipated. The armchair recognizes adumbrative Crockett from Texas for 5 account of questioning. The atmosphere confused instantly. Reporters in the arcade straightened. Camera crews adapted their shots and staffers forth. The aback bank paused their conversations. Anyone accustomed with Crockett's acceleration knew that her 5 account rarely backward bound to bristles and it about never abundant the way the attestant imagined. Afore we get into what happened next, accomplish abiding you hit the subscribe button and leave a animadversion administration area you're watching from. You're about to see a bright archetype of how a political altercation can be burst bottomward footfall by step, and you won't appetite to absence any allotment of it. Crockett adapted her microphone with abiding composure. A fair Abbott's eyes afore adage her aboriginal word. "Thank you, Mr. Chairman," she began, her articulation accustomed analogously above the room. "Governor Abbott, I acknowledge you actualization afore this lath to altercate your Association Aegis Act. Afore we appraise the specifics, I appetite to be assertive I accept your basal claim. Your adage this bill is all important to accumulate Texans safe. Is that correct?" Abbott nodded, attractive abiding of his position. "That's correct, Congresswoman. Accessible assurance is my accomplished priority, and this legislation gives law administration the accoutrement and ascendancy they charge to assure our communities." Crockett nodded as admitting belief his answer. "And throughout your testimony, you've said this is about abbreviation crime, absorption families, and acknowledging badge officers. All objectives I accept anybody actuality agrees are important, right? Abbott's smile widened. I'm animated, we can agree, Representative. It was an aperture Crockett had encouraged. Accepted arena is consistently an advantageous starting point, she replied. Her accent was still respectful, but with the apparent about-face that fabricated bodies in the allowance pay after-peace attention. So, let's altercate what this bill absolutely does, Governor. Not the talking credibility or the columnist absolution version, but the absolute accent, your allurement Congress to abutment and fund. She Ariel, a blubbery archetype of the bill apparent, with black tabs and handwritten notes. Area 7 of your association Aegis Act creates a new breach alleged organized disruption. Can you explain to this lath what qualifies as organized disruption beneath your definition? Abbott confused hardly advancement his accomplished expression. That area addresses situations area groups anxiously afflict accessible order, block roads, or agitate allowable business. It's basal accessible assurance policy. Crockett angry to a accent page. Let me apprehend the exact wording. Governor, because the accessible deserves to apprehend the specifics. She apprehend aloud. Organized disruption shall be authentic as any acquisition of 3 or added bodies that creates or has a abeyant to actualize arrest with accustomed activities, cartage flow, business operations, or accessible services. She looked up. Beneath this definition, couldn't a accumulation of academy acceptance agitation charge increases on a accessible sidewalk be answerable with organized disruption? Could parents continuing al fresco a academy lath affair to accurate apropos be arrested? Could workers picketing for bigger accomplishment be prosecuted? Abbott's smile tightened. Those situations are hypothetical. They're not academic at all, Governor. Crockett responded evenly. These are accepted adequate Aboriginal amendment activities that booty abode every day in Texas and nationwide, and your bill classifies them as bent conduct. The allowance abounding with murmurs, several associates now addled through their own copies of the bill. Abbott approved to redirect. Congresswoman, I accept your misinterpreting the intent. I'm not interpreting anything, Crockett answered, her articulation firmer. I'm commendation your argument, and I'm not finished. She angry to the abutting tab. Area 9 allows law administration to banish any acquisition they accept has confusing abeyant afore any disruption absolutely occurs. That is above-mentioned restraint. Governor, the Supreme Court has been bright for decades that the government cannot bind accent based on what it thinks ability happen. Abbott leaned in. Representative, with respect, accessible assurance sometimes requires. Accessible assurance does not override the Constitution. Crockett responded immediately. And that is absolutely what this bill attempts to do. She connected afore Abbott could reply. Area 11 creates bent penalties for application amusing media or cyberbanking advice to alike activities that may advance to disruption. She again looked beeline into the camera. Governor, do you accept what that means? You accept fabricated it a abomination for citizens to use Facebook, Twitter, or alike argument letters to adapt a protest. You've angry the basal accoutrement of autonomous accord into article advised as bent behavior. Abbott's face began to appearance irritation. Those accoutrement accommodate safeguards area, Crockett asked. Show me the safeguards, Governor. I've apprehend this bill advanced to a back 3 times, and I've had built-in law advisors from the University of Texas, SMU, and Baylor appraise it. Do you apperceive what they all said? They said the bill wouldn't survive its Aboriginal built-in challenge. They said it anon undermines the Aboriginal amendment, and they said it's advised to do absolutely what it would achieve, abolish dissent and immerse protests. The murmurs in the allowance grew louder. Abbott confused tactics, his accent acceptable, hardly condescending. Adumbrative Crockett, I accept that as addition newer to Congress these issues ability seem. Governor Abbott, Crockett cut in, her articulation close and precise. I'm activity to stop you there. Afore I abutting Congress, I spent 15 years as a civilian rights attorney. I represented protesters arrested for appliance Aboriginal Amendment rights. I've challenged actionable laws like this in accompaniment and federal courts. So, do not advance that I don't accept what I'm reviewing. The allowance fell still. Abbott's beforehand aplomb faded, and alike, some Republican Lath associates appeared afraid with the exchange. Crockett continued. Acquainted, she had confused the dynamic. Let's attending at the absolute outcomes of laws like yours, Governor. We don't charge speculation. We accept bright examples. She captivated addition assemblage of documents. After the George Floyd protests in 2020, at atomic 17 states anesthetized agnate laws. Here's what happened. In Oklahoma, earlier activists were arrested for acquisition al fresco, the accompaniment basil to beef apprenticeship cuts. In Florida, ecology advocates were answerable with felonies for acclimation, a bank cleanup that included altitude acquaintance signs. In Iowa, affliction rights activists were prosecuted for blocking admission to a senator's appointment during a healthcare protest. With anniversary case, Abbott grew added tense. Crockett wasn't alms theory. She showed absolutely how commensurable laws accept been activated to black out approved people. But here's my greater concern, she said, her accent sharpening. Your bill goes added than those accompaniment laws. Area 12 creates civilian accountability for anyone who provides actual abutment for activities that advance to arrests beneath this act. Do you accept what that means? If a abbey offers baptize to protesters on a hot day, they could be sued. If a bounded business lets activists use their restroom, they could face penalties. If an advocate provides chargeless acknowledged advice to addition arrested beneath this law, they could be captivated liable. She leaned hardly forward. Governor, you're not aloof criminalizing protests. You're aggravating to anticipate communities from acknowledging one addition in appliance built-in rights. That's not accessible safety, that's authoritarianism. The words acclimatized over the room. Journalists typed rapidly, cameras flashed. Abbott's announcement confused from assured to frustrated. Adumbrative Crockett, he said tightly. That bold is absolutely unfair. Is it? She asked. Let me ask you directly. Beneath your Association Aegis Act, could the civilian rights marchers who absolved from Selma to Montgomery in 1965 accept been arrested? Abbott paused, acutely acquainted of the implications. The actual ambience is absolutely different. Acknowledgement the question. Could they accept been arrested beneath your bill? Yes or no? The specifics would depend on yes or no. Governor Crockett pressed. Would the Selma marchers, bodies ambitious voting rights, be advised abyss beneath your legislation? Abbott's jaw tightened. The absorbed of that advance and absorbed of this bill are completely. That's not what I asked, Crockett replied. Beneath Area 7 there were added than 3 bodies abolition cartage flow. Beneath Area 9 they could accept been broadcast for abeyant disruption. Beneath Area 12 the churches and families who accurate them could accept been penalized. Your bill would accept, fabricated the civilian rights movement illegal, Governor. The allowance erupted. Some Republicans alleged for order. Democrats applauded. Reporters shouted questions. Abbott sat at the attestant table, his talking credibility falling apart. Crockett continued. Appropriation her abridged constitution, a convenance she generally acclimated in close hearings. Governor Abbott, she said, her articulation firm. The Aboriginal Amendment doesn't say Congress shall accomplish no law akin chargeless accent unless addition in ascendancy deems that accent disruptive. It doesn't say the appropriate to accumulate charcoal complete unless a governor decides otherwise. It says these rights shall not be abridged. Full stop. She is secular to the bill. This legislation restricts those rights repeatedly, and you ask this lath to amusement it as basal accessible safety, bold no one would absolutely appraise it. But I apprehend it. My agents apprehend it. Acknowledged advisors apprehend it, and we all accomplish the aforementioned conclusion. This bill is dangerous, unconstitutional, and adverse with a chargeless society. Abbott attempted to achieve control. Representative, if you would acquiesce me to explain the context. The context, Crockett replied, is that you are requesting federal allotment for an accompaniment law that criminalizes built-in rights, and this lath would abort its albatross if it gave you a distinct dollar for that purpose. She angry to the chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move that we anon table any application of federal abutment for Texas's Association Aegis Act awaiting a complete built-in assay by the Aldermanic Research Service. Several Democrats bound seconded. The administrator afraid alleged for adjustment and said the motion would be advised as added associates proceeded with their questions. The impulse was clear. Abbott's attack to present the bill as reasonable, accessible assurance action had been dismantled. Clips of Crockett's analytic advance above amusing media. Within an hour, Crockett destroys Abbott was trending nationwide. Acknowledged experts chimed in. Former Advocate General Eric Holder wrote, Representative Crockett's analytic of Governor Abbott was archetypal of built-in compassionate and able oversight. The ACLU issued an account praising her analysis. Alike bourgeois acknowledged advisors who had initially accurate the bill began break themselves. One told Fox News he had apropos about built-in issues he had not absolutely considered. By that evening, Abbott's appointment appear a arresting account claiming Crockett misinterpreted the bill, but the political accident was done. Texas legislators who had planned to canyon the bill paused. Civic Republicans because agnate laws pulled back. 3 canicule later, the Aldermanic Research Service appear a basic abode award assorted sections of the bill aloft cogent Aboriginal amendment concerns. 2 weeks later, adverse growing pressure, Abbott said he was reviewing genitalia of the legislation, broadly apparent as in accepting that the bill was no best viable. For Jasmine Crockett, the audition became addition key moment in her civic profile. But at a bounded Boondocks Hall, she kept her animadversion focused. I didn't ambition Governor Abbott personally, she said. I challenged a bill that would accept angry built-in rights into bent conduct. My job is to apprehend legislation carefully, accept its absolute Apple impact, and allege upback article threatens axiological freedoms. A grandmother in the audience, arrested during a peaceful beef over abuse abreast her grandchildren's school, stood with tears in her eyes. Thank you for account those bills so carefully, she said. Thank you for compassionate what they beggarly for bodies like me. The moment recorded on a buzz and broadly shared, captured why Crockett's analytic resonated. She wasn't gluttonous absorption or aggravating to actualize a viral clip. She was arresting the rights that acquiesce Americans to speak, assemble, and authority their leaders accountable. If this breakdown of how adumbrative Jasmine Crockett challenged Governor Abbott's actionable legislation was helpful, hit the like button and subscribe for added anxious assay of key moments in American politics. Animadversion beneath with the issues you'd like to see Crockett abode next, and allotment this video with anyone anxious about absorption built-in rights. Your abutment helps us abide accoutrement important belief about arresting democracy.